Abibi Fahodier Black family, race first. Excuse me. Excuse me, I apologize for this. Something in my chest. But as always, welcome back to another session here at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. I am Baba Imhotep, your facilitator, your instructor, the moderator of this session here. As always, it's a wonderful thing for Black people to be able to get together. There's a lot going on. A lot is going on. And as you coming on this live, please share the live. Share the live. Get the likes up so we can get the content out. As always, we will have a dynamic session. And I'm always of the mindset that the more energy that comes from the viewers, the better. So I am open for your interaction, for your comments. As we have some people that's in the house already. Ifa Bamala, Makanda, before they race first, my brother. We got Asafo Fatu, Hotep. It's always is a blessing to have you in the house. We're gonna tonight. What I want to do before I get into my things, I want to make a habit of reading from one of my books. So tonight I want to read a passage from Nomo, A Unified Field of African Spirituality. I'm gonna read a passage from there before we get into the things that I want to talk about with you guys tonight. And where I'm going at inside of Nomo, I think I want to deal with rhythm. There's a part in here I talk about rhythm on page 145. Rhythm, 145. And I'm speaking about rhythm in relation to African people, Black people, as rhythm pertains to what it means to be spiritual. So stick with me. If you have the book, you can go there. If not, no big deal. So I'm going to read a little bit about from rhythm. So we got here. Okay, we got a lot of people in the house. Zenzi, Abibi Fahodier, raised first. Zaquani, my brother, beautiful brother. I'm glad to see you came back again. Hotep, my brother Michael, Hotep. So let me get into rhythm real quick. Rhythm. Once again, I'm reading from Nomo, which is my book. So I say in rhythm, I says, rhythm is intrinsic to African beingness. It's intrinsic to who we are as a people. Blackness is rhythm. Rhythm is what we are. At our core, there is rhythm. Rhythm activates our essence. We are bound by rhythm. There is a rhythmic cord binding us one to the other and connecting us to the spirit world. In fact, rhythm is essential to the process of accessing the spirit world. Our relationship to spirit is based on rhythm. Rhythm is how we connect and sync with the spirit realm. We make rhythm through movement and sound. For instance, stomping, clapping, humming, beating, singing, drumming, dancing, etc. Rhythm moves us and causes us to move. We live in rhythm. Rhythm is all around and within us. Rhythm permeates our entire being. Our internal vibratory frequency produces a sublime rhythm produced from rhythm. I'm going to stop there for now, but I want to talk about rhythm. And I wanted to read that part because I want us to understand that that's what we are as Black people. And we have to learn to re-celebrate what it means to be Black, because systematically Black have been under attack, and many of us are beginning to view Black as a bad thing because we've bought into the narrative surrounding what it means to be Black. But we need to recapture Black, redefine Black, and reassess it and reaffirm it. Like, Black is at the core. It is the essence. And within that Blackness is rhythm. And rhythm is that which we see out within the universe. Manifestation is rhythm. Without rhythm, nothing is. Like vibrations, the rhythm there is what produces what we define as being physical reality. So what we define as being physical reality is based upon and is directly linked to rhythm. For us, we are that rhythm. We are the full manifestation of rhythm. However, rhythm can be stifled. Rhythm can be suffocated. Rhythm can be suppressed. And to a great extent, that's what have happened to many of our people. Our rhythm have been suffocated. It have been stifled. It have been suppressed. The work that we must do is a work that is designed to reactivate rhythm, the harmony of blackness. That's the rhythm, right? The harmony of black beingness is the rhythm. Like when we look into the vastness of what we define as being outer space, we see what? Black, right? But within that black, which appears to be still, there is rhythm, there is movement, there is order. That's who we are, man. When you think about the things that we touch, the things that we do, look at sports. Take sports, for instance, right? If you look at basketball over the last 30 years, you see nothing but an ongoing evolution. You see nothing but ongoing evolution. If you just look at the last 30 years of basketball, it's evolution in terms of what the athletes are doing. Look at sports, right? Look at the golf right now. Look at take tennis or running. Right? Just look at what we are doing as a people. Look at the music, right? Before us, there is no indigenous quote unquote American music in this land here. Without us, you erase us, the music disappears. All genre of music has its origin in blackness. When you think about it, sports, boxing, relationships, family building, rearing children, like it's the rhythm that we bring to all of that gives it the meaning that it has. And that's black. That's not nothing that we should be ashamed of. We should applaud that. And we should be happy about that. That is the beauty of who we are. And until we can recapture that beauty in being black, we will struggle. We will always be battling with these identity crises because we're consistently trying to compare ourselves to other people who really are not in our league, man. They're not in our league. They're not who we should be comparing ourselves to. And so we get caught up in these comparisons with these people because they have manipulated the media. They have manipulated propaganda in their interest, which they should, though. They should always center themselves and make themselves out to be the best. They should. Our job is to know who we are, to remember who we are, to remember who we are. And so that's what this is all about. It's about the beauty of what it means to be black and the rhythm of blackness. Right? The rhythm of blackness. We talk about, you take Africa and you take all the genius that came out of Africa. Then you take black people outside of Africa. If you just take the United States of America, because we are in Black History Month, but if you took the United States of America and you began to just look at black people in this land here alone, you'll be looking forever, because we have done the unthinkable in this land. We have done the unthinkable. We have done the impossible. You know what I'm saying? So you'll be looking forever, man. We talk about sitting on a toilet, the mop, the ironing board, the iron, the bicycle. You know what I'm saying? To ride the bike, the traffic light, the gas mask. Go on and on and on. Refrigerated trucks, man. Come on, man. You can go on forever when it comes to the genes of what it means to be black. The lights that's right now, the filament in this light that allows this light to be, lasting, long lasting, it's us. Like, we are everywhere in this place. And that's just on in the inventive sense. I'm not even getting into the intellectual sense, the philosophical sense, the spiritual sense. Like, come on now. You talking about spirituality, or let's just don't even deal with spirituality. Go to the original black religious, right? Deal with black religion in this land before it got co-opted. Them black preachers, they was on the forefront. They was transforming communities, transforming lives, still doing right out of the 1800s. You know what I'm saying? Samuel Cornish out of the 1800s. Henry Highland Garnett out of the 1800s. They was ministers and pastors. That's what they were. They didn't play any games. So we are unmatched. So we got to stop trying to compare ourselves to other people, and we got to dig deeper into who we are. We must remember. We must remember. And you can hear me say that a whole lot tonight. We must remember. And there's a passage in my book on remembrance. I may read some of that tonight. But we must remember. Because everything that we have been subjected to in this land, everything, you name it, lynchings, rapes, slaughter, mass incarceration, drug addiction, kidnappings, Jim Crow, escrow, you name it, right? Segregation, firebombing, the KKK, the pseudoscience to try to, talk about the cranium of black people. Everything that we have been subjected to in this land have been done with the express intent to keep us from finding out who we are. Everything. Because when we really know who we are, unstoppable. When we really know, unstoppable. But everything is thrown at us to keep us distracted from knowing who we are. Just knowing. And that's why it's imperative to the highest extent that those of us who are in the trenches doing some work, it's imperative that we take every opportunity that's presented to bring knowledge to our people. If we have to do it within the month of February, then we maximize during that month. If we got to do it in May, around Malcolm X's birthday and African Liberation Day, then we maximize during that time period. If it got to be in August, Black August, then we maximize during that time period. If it got to be around the time period when we dealing with Umoja Kalamu in November, then you maximize. If it's during December, during Kwanzaa, you maximize. If it's around Dr. Clark's birthday, you know what I'm saying, Henry Highland Garnett's birthday, Dr. Ben's birthday in December and January, and Dr. taking a job, then we maximize. We must make every use of these moments that come to bring this information to our people, right? To situate us within ourselves, to open up our creativity. And so on that note, I'm going to transition a little bit back into some of the things we dealt with last week. But for those of you who were here with me last week, let's recap. What did we deal with last week? Let me see who can remember. Let's recap a little bit. What did we deal with last week when we was in session? I'm going to give you a few minutes so you can go in and, go inside your brain and let me see what you can pull out. Let me see how many of my viewers are studious, because we here at the School of Urban Philosophy, where we are students of history. That's what this is all about. We are students of history. We are very humble to the learning process. Humility to us is a virtue. So we come to learn. So who out there can remember what we dealt with last? Let's recap. Come on now. Where we at? Zenzi, Asafo, Ilewa, Jabali, Zaquani. I know y'all was here last week. Come on. Nikki Lenova, you was here. You was here. Let me know what's going on, y'all. Let's recap what we dealt with last week. Oh man. Oh, we're a little quiet tonight. Okay, I can accept being quiet. I like when we quiet. That's a good thing. So this is what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna transition off of something we dealt with last week. So last week, for those of you who were here, Safo, Mirror of Liberty, David Ruggles. Yes, we spoke about David Ruggles and his magazine. We talked about David Ruggles. Yes, no doubt, David Ruggles. And what was the organization that David Ruggles founded in 1935? What's the name of the organization? Anyone remember that? This organization, 1935, David Ruggles. Yes, the Committee of Vigilance or the Vigilance Committee, all is the same. Yes, great job. Now, so I wanted to transition from that there into something that's very important. And like I say, there you go. Yeah, the New York Committee of Vigilance, the New York Vigilance Committee. Yes, beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. So David Ruggles started this essentially in 1835. And they pretty much, when he started it, the basis, that's my sister right there. First Black-owned bookstore, David Ruggles. That's right. Thank you, my sister. You're on point too. Yeah, we in the house. My students waking up. I love it. That's what I'm talking about. So David Ruggles started that organization, it's a self-defense organization. And he started that organization initially to protect free Blacks from being kidnapped. That was the initial reason why it was started. But as he began to work the organization and get in the ground, yes, David Ruggles again. So the organization was started initially to protect free Blacks in New York who were being kidnapped, the majority of which were Black children. They were being kidnapped by white men, and it was being taken to the city recorder, who back then name was Richard Riker. And Richard Riker would automatically, they called it the Kidnapping Club. It was called the Kidnapping Club. Richard Riker and the constables and the white men coming in and stuff like that. So David Ruggles wanted to stop that and prevent that from happening. So he created the Vigilance Committee, or the Committee of Vigilance, whatever one you want to call it, it's the same. But as he began to do the work, being more entrenched in those streets doing that work, what he noticed is that more of our enslaved brothers, who back then they called self-emancipated, the self-emancipated slave, that was the term they used in the 1800s, right? So our enslaved Black brothers and sisters who were running from those plantations, and people was trying to hunt them down, the Vigilance Committee began to not only defend and protect the free Blacks, it also focused on the brothers and sisters who was running to aid them. Now listen to what I'm saying. The organization also shifted to aid Black people who were already emancipating themselves from chattel enslavement. So they began to aid them. So when you get to the end of the like around 1837, 1838, you get the Vigilance Committee of Philadelphia or Pennsylvania. You get that. And then when you get into like the early 40s, you get the Vigilance Committee of Upper New York and Albany, New York. And when you get like in the mid 40s, you got Vigilance Committees everywhere. Now, the Vigilance Committees on the work of David Ruggles, we got to keep his name out there. is the beginning to the organized system that we know today as the Underground Railroad. Let me say that again. The vigilance committees in these different places, because they stayed in contact as they were doing what? As they were helping the brothers and sisters who was running. So the vigilance committees in PA, up in New York, Connecticut, you name it, these different places, they communicated, they worked hand in hand. Albany, New York, one of the major figures in Albany, New York, Vigilance Committee who was instrumental is a brother by the name of Stephen Myers. Stephen Myers. Don't forget that name. Stephen Myers. He was instrumental in Albany, New York. He carried it in Albany, New York, similar to how David Ruggles carried it in the lower part of New York. They was on the same wavelength and how they carried it. And he was on the front line, and he was at the head of doing that work in terms of aiding and receiving the brothers and sisters who was running and making sure that they can go further up and even get into Canada and places like that. That was one of the things that he, he was instrumental in carrying it like that up in that part. So we want to know that right there. So the point me bringing it up is that when we get to what we know to be the Underground Railroad, because in most instances the Underground Railroad is always presented a certain kind of way, but it's a slant to it, because it never deals with like, how did this organized system, this network, come up? What was this network? It's kind of left out. It's presented as if, as if the origins is shrouded in mystery, but it's not. It's not. It's just it just take a little bit of perusing history, and you're going to find it. The Underground Railroad evolves out of the vigilant committees and how they were organized in their network of helping those brothers and sisters who was running. Yes, that's the correct spelling there. And that last name is Myers. Yes, sir. So that's how we get the Underground Railroad. And so a brother who I'll talk about a little bit later, probably next week or so, I mentioned his name last week, I'm gonna mention him again tonight. Robert Purvis, out of Philly. He was instrumental in that vigilance committee there. He was very instrumental there. He wasn't as radical as David Ruggles. However, he was committed to aiding his people. So because he was committed to aiding his people, that's why I mentioned him, because he was sincere in that regard. Yeah, he wasn't radical. And I'm not always looking for the radical ones, you know what I'm saying? Because everybody got a different methodology, man, how we do this work. What matters is if you're doing the work for us, if you're sincere, you're not selling us out, you're not cowarding out, you're not doing all that old foul stuff. That's what matters. Now, everybody's not going to be, straight up and down radical. It's just not their disposition. And that's okay, because we need all kind of brothers and sisters to do this work. We need all kind of brothers and sisters to do this work, man. We need you to be where you're good at. I don't need you trying to be in combat if you're not good at combat. I don't need, a brainiac that's only good with computers trying to be in the field of combat. That's not the person I want standing beside me. That doesn't mean that I don't appreciate you, but I need you where you're good at. I need you to handle those computers. So that's how I look at this thing that, this work that needs to be done. But back to what I want us to understand is that the Underground Railroad has an origin. And that origin, once again, it takes us to David Ruggles. So in one sense, we could say, he's at the very, 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 very front of the Underground Railroad. How and why we would say that? It's because the Underground Railroad, that network, that system, it evolves out of the vigilance committees, and the vigilance committees follows the New York Vigilance Committee. So wherever you get one at in this land, they're following the work of David Ruggles. And not only are they following the work of David Ruggles, but they all staying in contact. So it's not like the Albany, New York, is unaware of Philly. No, they are linked up. You know, they are linked, they are connected. And it's that connection, organization, we're using the word connection, but organization that made them effective. If they were disconnected, they wouldn't have been effective. Because you got to think, we're talking about moving people. We're talking about moving people out of Maryland, through Maryland, out of Virginia, through South Carolina, North Carolina, you know, through Maryland, up through Philly, through the sides of Delaware properly, up through New York and further up, all through New York and further up into Canada. You know, that's organization. You know, if they didn't have any contacts, no connections, if they was, you know, consistently at odds with one another and not working together, they couldn't have made none of that happen. They couldn't have made none of that happen. None of that at all. And we have to pay attention to that, you know, and we have to think about all the different people who was instrumental. You had a brother out of Jacob Gibbs. I believe this brother was out of was it North Carolina? It probably was North Carolina, but don't quote me on that because I got a lot of these up in my head. But his name is Jacob Gibbs, though. Instrumental of aiding people to get out of where they was at to get up. Instrumental brother, man. Brother was a painter. You know, he had a painting business. You know, he was once enslaved, but he was able to purchase his freedom and then open up a painting business. And from there, he was able to position himself to help others to run. Right? And he was linked up in that whole entire process. You know, but what does that have to do with us today? What does any of that has to do with Black history? I'll tell you. Because history is to a people what memory is to a person. Let me say that again. History is to a people what memory is to a person. See, memory is so important to psychological stability and soundness. It's that important, memory. Memory is important to coordination, organization, orientation, right? Memory is important, and oftentimes we take it for granted, right? But memory is that important to personal psychological health, whereas history is that important to collective psychological health. History is not something that you take for granted. It's not something that, you know, in 1865 this happened, in 1925 this happened. It's not just the dates, nor is it the events, right? The dates and the events, those things are truly inconsequential. What truly matters is the interpretation of what occurred within the event and how we take from that, right? It's to know what happened. It's to remember. So history is a part of that. Like, it's to remember what have happened. So when you don't remember what happened, or you don't have memory of what happened, you are subjected to experience it again because you don't have the knowledge of how to prevent it from happening because you don't even know that it happened before. So that's the importance of it. So history is what we take with us wherever we go. The same way you take your memory with you wherever you go, that's how history is set up. You can't park your history, right? You can't say, I just celebrate my history, 28 days out of the year. You know what I'm saying? So that's the reason why you're never going to hear me say, man, I celebrate history all year long. You don't have to say that when you know your history, because your history go wherever you go. When you know your history, it's like you know your memory. It's going to go wherever you go. Wherever I go, my memories go with me. As long as I'm within the physical realm. And that's the same as history. So we have to understand that. So we know about the Vigilance Committee. We know about David Ruggles. Why? Not just to know his name, but what was his personality like? What's his personality? So what does history what have history retained for us in terms of his personality? Because it's the person that matters. Right? It's who he was. It's his undying loyalty for his people. It's his commitment to justice. It's his courage in the face of injustice. Right? It's that man. It's to be upstanding. Right? It's those things that we look at when we look at David Ruggles. And many more things, but I'm pointing those things out. But it's many more things. It's the intellect, So rather than just saying, well, I'm a man, but you don't have nothing intangible to validate your manhood other than the fact that you have biology and anatomy, that's not enough. And that's the same with womanhood. There's nothing intangible that gives your womanhood validation beyond anatomy and biology, is insufficient. Insufficient. So my manhood can't just be based on my biology and my anatomy alone. My biology and my anatomy is necessary, but there's some other stuff that must be added to that gives validation to my manhood, right? And those are the intangible things: your morals, your principles, your courage, your spiritual awareness, right? Those are the intangible things, right? Your psychological stability, your emotional maturity. As those are the intangible things that bring your manhood and your womanhood to the forefront. Not just your biology and your anatomy. So when we're looking at these people, when you look at a Maria Stewart and you say, well, dang, man, Maria Stewart was the first Black woman, not only the first Black woman, the first woman in the United States of America to make a public speech. And she did this in the 1800s. She was rolling with David Walker. She was a David Walker's colleague, Maria Stewart. Like she was of the ilk, you know what I'm saying, where she was a radical Black woman. We're talking in the early 1800s. And we say, well, Maria Stewart was the first Black woman to deliver, a public speech, because we talk about a time period when these European men, they didn't value womanhood, and you most definitely didn't value Black womanhood, right? So, but then this Black woman, who had the courage to say, man, I'm going to speak. And she spoke her mind eloquently, intelligently, and she spoke for her people, right? So when I look at Black womanhood in history, they all political. They're all political. You name it. Mary Church Terrell, political. Cooper, Anna Julia Cooper, political. You name it. Bethune, political. Like you just go on, just start naming them, run them down. You know what I'm saying? All political, man. All of them. Frances Harper, political. Sarah Mapp, political. They all stood up. You just name them. You just find them and name them. You'll see, right? So what am I saying? I'm saying that the history is what helps to make us who we are, because the history provides us with the examples that we can examine, and then based on our examination of the examples, we can determine to what degree we are going to model ourselves after the examples that history have handed down to us. That's what this is about. That's what this is about. So when we're talking about Black History Month, we're not just worrying about or focusing on who was the first person who created this or that, right? We're looking at what was the character of those people, right? Because the character is what we have to build on, is what we have to take. Because we are living in a dangerous time period where people are masquerading as things that they are not. So we have to bring it back to the character. It must be about the character. So when I talk about any Black person from within our history, my emphasis is the character. It's the character that matters. It's the character. If I'm going to talk about Henry Highland Garnet, it's the character of Henry Highland Garnet that matters. somebody who stood up, somebody who was young in his early 20s. I think it's between 19 or 2021 probably, when he was out on a ship and he came back and he found out that the quote unquote Europeans had been to his house looking for his father because his father and his family had fled. And when he found out that they had came to his house and they kind of just, his house was in disarray because his father had to go back in the house and jump out the window and run. He finds out the first thing he do is grab a weapon and he go looking for the jokers, right? He's a young man, but he's going to go do what? He's going out there and deal with them because you brought something to my door front. Right? So it's the character. When I talk about a Martin Delany, it's the character. You know what I'm saying? Martin Delany, I'm going to paraphrase what he said. I'm going to mess it up at the same time, right? But he essentially made a statement one time that if one of them Europeans showed up on his door front and they try to break down his door, and he said, man, and if I don't lay that joker down, you know what I'm saying? Don't even accept my body, man, into heaven. He said, if any of them come to my doorstep and crack my door down, thinking they're going to come across this threshold, acting crazy, and I do not lay him down, don't accept me into heaven. That's Martin Delany. So when I talk about these men, I'm talking about their character, like upstanding men who had good character, and women who had good character. That's what history is about. That's what it's about. It's about to show us, man, the quality of the people we have produced. It's the quality. Dr. Dennis Minister saw, peace, fam, peace. It's the quality of the character that matters. And we have to get our people to the place where we begin to place value on the character and we look for the character, because too many charlatans are running rampant in our community because they sound good, man. Just because they sound good, we all up in there and we say stuff like, well, the information is good, so I ain't pretty much worrying about the character. That's a false, man. That analysis is false. Because when you do not worry about the quality of the character and you keep on just jumping on their lives, going to their YouTubes, and you keep giving them these views, right? You keep them in the algorithm. You make them relevant. And by making them relevant, you giving them space to further fleece other people, right? So it is the character. The character is what we must look at. It's the character. So in my newest book, Scientific Pan-Africanism, so those of you who made who pre-ordered, your book has been shipped. You should be receiving it within a day or two. But I talk about some black men in here and some black women in here. And I don't, talk about them to the degree where I don't acknowledge that they had some flaws. I do acknowledge their flaws. I acknowledge their flaws, but I'm not stepping on them because I acknowledge their flaws doesn't mean at the same time I can't uphold the value of the work that they did in their efforts to push us forward. But, I acknowledge that they had some flaws, right? But they had great intentions and they had good quality character. And that's what this is about. So what does Black history tells us about Black character? What does it tell us about Black character? We got to look at it, man. We got to look at that. You had a brother by the name of Prince Saunders. Prince Saunders, that's his name. Prince Saunders was rolling around the time period of Paul Cuffe. So we talk about the late 1700s because that's when Paul Cuffe was born in the last quarter of the 1700s. Paul Cuffe, around 1812, Paul Cuffe is already taking Black people back to Africa. But he had Prince Saunders that was also doing some navigations back during in that time period. Solid brother. Now Prince Saunders was so solid in his character, he was able to forge a relationship with the third emperor of Haiti. No, the second emperor of Haiti. Because the first one was Jean-Jacques Dessalines. Then the second one was Christophe. You know what I'm saying? So because Toussaint Overture, he didn't see the independence. He was essential, Boukman and Toussaint, they was essential, but it was Jean-Jacques Dessalines that brought that thing in. And you had Jacques Dessalines, and then you had Christophe after him. But Prince Saunders from the United States of America had a relationship with Christoph. And they was in talks where him and Christoph was brokering a deal that was going to facilitate the immigration of blacks in the United States of America back to Haiti before all this other stuff jumped off down there, and they never got a chance to solidify that. Don't take my word for it. Go do your research. Don't take my word for it. Go do your research. Prince Saunders, another solid brother, man. He was solid in his character. You know, so that's the reason why I bring his name up, because he was solid. You got another solid brother who was a part of the quote unquote, they call it the American Revolution, but it wasn't a revolution. It was just some white boys, you know what I'm saying, getting mad at some white cousins for the most part. That's what you had. They like, yo, check this out, man. We done found a way to make some money, man, and exploit some people, man. We want to do our own thing there. That's what that was. That wasn't a revolution, right? But you had a brother, man, that was rolling during that time period by the name of Primus Hall. Primus Hall. You know, it is believed that Primus Hall is the son of Prince Hall. You know, but Primus Hall, he was pushing education and educational reform in the 1700s. This brother was about educating black people in the 1700s. That's what his mindset was. He believed that the education of the black, I'm quoting him, man, and I'm paraphrasing, the education of the black race, because they always said race. They would say black race or African race, right? It was very clear about that. The education of the African race, right, is essential to the uplift of the race. Primus Hall. Primus Hall. Another solid brother. Solid brother. Character. Character. That's what this is all about. We're talking about character, man. You know, and we have to be looking for that. Like, man, you know, who have good character? You have, and another thing I want to bring to the forefront too, is I don't want us to believe that the only thing good with black people is in the ground. So I know I talk a lot about history, and I talk about a lot about our ancestors. I do that, but I also want to always bring the balance, because we have solid black men and women that's still standing on this earth today. And we need to be able to acknowledge and affirm and celebrate those solid black men and women that's doing great work for the race today. Because all things good with black people isn't in the ground. You know, all things good isn't in the ground, you know. So you don't gotta always think that you gotta look so far, you know, to find black and African genius or greatness. No, it's right here amongst us. It's right here amongst us. You know, many of us have done things that, man, that's phenomenal. And we have to be able to applaud that. You know, we can start naming names right now. And I'm not talking about these people out here who are just popular. No, I'm talking about solid, upstanding men, man. Integrity. Women of integrity. That's what I'm talking about, you know? Yeah, that's what this is all about. So I mention those brothers and sisters because they're great. I love it because I'm a student of history. History motivates me. That's how much I enjoy it. History motivates me. So yes, I'm going to always pull from history. But I'm clear enough to know that everything good, everything great, everything excellent about black people isn't in the ground. There's a lot of great black men and women, excellent black men and women that's walking this earth right now, that's transforming lives right now. You know, I like to believe, and I like to believe that I walk and carry myself in a very humble way. I like to believe I do. I strive to be very humble, but at the same time, I know, and juxtaposed to that humility, that I am supremely great. I know that. How do I know that? Because my existence have transformed the existence of other people. That's how I define greatness. Not just by my pronouncements that I'm great. Like the greatness is the impact that my existence have had on the existence of other people. So I've seen that in real time. So that's what this is about. So when we talk about Black history, we must know that history begins in the present. History always begins in the present. Why? Because there's only the eternal now. There is only the eternal now. It starts now. To be great is to be great. Like, you don't die and become great. Like, to be great is to be great. That's what this is about. You know, you gotta be doing it. You know, and another thing, like, greatness it's not a plateau. It's not a status. It's a perpetual performance. It's what you perpetually do. Your genius is what you perpetually do. Your excellence is your attitude. It's what you perpetually do. It's how you maintenance it. That's what it's about. You know, it's how you understand what it means to be Black. Because regardless of what any person says, and many people are going to come up with all these reasons to always try to speak ill against Black. Always. But if you go into any African thought, deep thought system and begin to look at Black, in most of those systems, Black have always been viewed as sacred and divine. Like, when you look at those systems, when they talk about the birth, when they talk about the formation of what we define as being the universe or this particular reality, it's forming out of Blackness. So Blackness is associated with divinity. Have always been that way. So we don't have to let people convince us that white people done anything. You know what I'm saying? We had a concept of Black before we encountered white people. They didn't. So because, but once again, because we are not remembering who we are, we just have to parrot what they say. And in fact, it ain't even what they say. It's what these idiots and these fools say, who's trying to make themselves popular. So they got to create something controversial. So they start picking on Black. And then we start listening to that because they know most of us not going to do the research. But you can go in Kemet and look at the Memphite theology. You can just go there and look at the Memphite theology. They talk about Noon and the way they project Noon as what? As darkness. And Noon is a divinity. Noon is a divinity, right? And it's dark, watery mass. And within it, it held potential reality. This is Kemetic science, I'm telling you. It's not what I'm making up. I didn't make this up, what I'm telling you. I'm telling you what they said, what the Kemetic two people said, Black people. So they already had a concept of Blackness associated with divinity. And we letting these people run around and keep on talking about what Black means death and all of that. You know what I'm saying? By whose standards? Your enemy is supposed to demonize you. You don't know that? Your enemy should demonize you. Your enemy should talk about you. Your enemy should say you nothing, you worthless. Your enemy is supposed to say that. You're not supposed to believe your enemy. You're supposed to have enough sense to know that your enemy is doing what? He or she is launching a psychological war against you. They're going to tear down and defame you. So they're supposed to say that stuff about us. You're supposed to remember when we knew what it meant to be Black. No white person said anything about that. That's us. Everything I just said, that's the Kemetu people. Don't take Bobby Hotel word for it. You go study the Memphite theology and you come back and tell me if they did not say that the Noon was dark, black, watery mass. You gonna tell me they didn't, you know? Now we're not gonna get into semantics, but just go back and see if they didn't say what I'm saying, in essence. And you will see. And you will come to know, like, wow, you know what I'm saying? Even the Igbo got a concept of Chineke. You know, people talk about, Chukwu and Chineke, which is Chi and Eke, and Chi is the unseen part, and Eke is the seen part. But when you put them together, you get Chineke. But this unseen and the seen starts out in this darkness, in a space of darkness place before there's light. Like even in the Igbo cosmology, you can go find it. I can run through several of them and find it. But I only know this, why? Because once again, I'm a student of our history. I'm not listening to what other people say about us. I'm not listening to them. I'm not buying into what they say. Because I know that there's a war that's being waged against Black people. And I know that the enemy knows how powerful Black is. It's that powerful. Make sure you like this video, Black men and Black women. Please share it. Please like it, man. Get the likes up, man. Get the likes up. Get those likes up. Let's get the likes up and let's share this thing. And I put the link in the chat. Go through the chat and you can find that link so you can place your order on the Scientific Pan-Africanism. Great book. Great book. There we go, right there. I don't know if you can get access to that, but the link is there inside the chat. Just go in there, you can get it. So hold on. Let me check on some stuff here. Biko Gotti, Hotep, Abibi Fahodie, Ujamanel, Hotep, Abibi Fahodie. Peace, my sister. Dr. Dennis. Zaquani said, Bob Hotep has a great card. I appreciate it, my brother. Thank you. PLO is one of those solid people. Thank you. Appreciate that. Dr. Dennis says, you are integral good brother, Bob Imhotep. Appreciate that. Thank you. Likewise, I share the same sentiments with you because I've seen nothing but consistency with you since, you've been doing the work since we first encountered around 2008. That's 17 years ago, man. 17 years ago when we first encountered, and you still doing that work. Still doing that work. So I see the consistency. So that's why every chance I get when I see you, you put a post where you're doing something, I let you know, like, man, keep pushing that thought. Keep doing what you're doing. Because you're pushing the right thought. You're pushing the right thought the right way. And that's what's needed, man. We need people that's going to push the right thought the right way, and we ain't playing games out here. So keep doing what you're doing. I appreciate the work. So yeah, it's the character. So I'm going to read some more of this book right here. It's another part I want to read about real quick. Earlier, I talked about, tonight, I'm going to go on page 116. Morality as spirituality. That's the name of it. Morality as spirituality, page 116. Oh, yeah. So it says that African morality, to a great extent, is determined by our concept of Nyame, Chukwu, etc. Our ultimate standard. We have a great amount of faith in the benevolent, just, merciful, and righteous nature of Chukwu, Olodumare, Ama, and Nyame, etc. These are just some of the attributes assigned to Olodumare, Ama, and Nyame. The supreme good that is associated with the absolute spirit, the ultimate source behind and responsible for reality, is the supreme good we strive to emulate. Since Chukwu, Olodumare, and Nyame, and Ama is absolutely good, this renders us, Black people, inherently good. We do not conceive of ourselves as distinct, separate, or set apart from Oludumare and Yame or Ama. We know that we share in the same essence. The indwelling spirit within us springs forth from the spirit of Chukwu. Essentially, we are one with Chukwu. African people aspire to be as they conceive Chukwu, Oludumare, and Yame to be. To aid them in this endeavor, this spiritual quest, African people devised and devised spiritual systems. These systems consist in part of spiritual knowledge, spiritual practices, spiritual instructions, spiritual rituals, spiritual celebrations, spiritual ceremonies, spiritual festivals, etc. All of which are based upon a spiritual understanding of the spirit world. Striving to emulate Oludumare through spiritual practices is rewarding to your spirit. This invariably cultivates good character. And good character is crucial regarding spirit living. Aspiring to achieve and sustain simultaneously good relations with yourself, family, community, nature, and the ancestors is a spiritual pursuit, not achieved or fulfilled without guidance from the ancestral realm. This must be an ongoing appeal to and dialogue with the ancestors. Spirit must be summoned into the process. A spiritual pursuit devoid of spirit is an incomplete spiritual pursuit. In fact, it is not a spiritual pursuit at all. So I'll stop there. So the point that I'm making there is that what we classify as spirituality to a great extent can be reduced to the degree to which we conduct ourselves at a high level, right? See, spirituality is not something that doesn't demand that we conduct ourselves in accordance with principles. See, we've been led to believe that if we sit around in some corner somewhere, meditating, burning sage, wearing a bunch of crystals, putting a bunch of mud cloth on and uttering a few statements, we think that makes us spiritual. Because we show up and we may be a part of a sacrifice or two, seeing a chicken getting his head cut off and things, and we think that makes us spiritual. Now, those things have a function, but that doesn't make you spiritual. What makes you spiritual is how you behave. Simple as that. What makes you spiritual is how you behave, because spirituality is about righteousness. Righteousness. So if you're doing all those things that I just said, but yet you are a compulsive liar, you're not spiritual. You can do all those things and you're a compulsive thief, you're not spiritual. Right? It's not. And we got to understand that, right? So it's not enough to pronounce. The pronouncement is not enough. It's totally insufficient. We need people who are going to pronounce and then demonstrate. If you pronounce it, you demonstrate it. Right? So spirituality as morality is a function of good character. It's a function of good character. How do you relate to your other brothers and sisters, nature, the cosmos, in the spirit world? What is your relationship? That's what I want us to understand. And that's what history, when we get into it the correct way, we come to know that. Because the deeper you get into your history, you're going to come to know exactly what your people were talking about and what they was doing. And you'll know, like, oh man, we got this thing wrong over here. We still lying, sexing all over the place, conniving, stealing. But yet we talk about we spiritual, manipulating people, charging your arm and a leg to give you a false reading. Yeah, that's what we doing. Yes, I'm calling it all out. We doing that, yeah. You want $13, $14, and $1,500, you see what I'm saying, to ask you a bunch of questions about yourself, and then you give everybody you give them all the information, then they're just going to repeat it right back to you. And you know what I'm saying? Nah, man, ain't nothing spiritual about that. Ain't nothing spiritual about that at all. Nothing at all. That's not what it's about. So if you want to understand the essence of what it means to be spiritual, in here, I call it spirit living. I use that term. I introduced that term because oftentimes I notice that people confuse spirituality with religion. And so I realized that, hey, rather than trying to untangle that confusion, reconceptualize it. So I say spirit living, because you can't confuse that with religion, because you don't even know what spirit living is. The only thing you can do is be humble to understand what it means to be engaged in spirit living. And when you humble yourself to be engaged in spirit living, you're going to really open up, because I'm talking about transformation. I'm talking about transformation and the perfectibility of your being. And why do I say that? Because our ancestors said it. They understood it was possible. That's why I say it. It's very possible. It's very possible. So as always, my brothers and sisters, or my sisters and brothers, I hope I've said something that you've been able to take and utilize, because we've just come to our last minute of this session. But as always, make sure you pay attention to the things that I've said. Retain what you can retain. Hold on to what you can hold on to, because we're going to be back here again next Thursday. And you know it, same time, same place, where we are always straight up, straightforward, and straight to the point. A people for Hodier and race first.